All right, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Mass Reviewer back again with another review, and tonight we are doing a review for BFDIA, aka Battle for Dream Island. Again, this is the sequel to the original Battle for Dream Island, and I'll give a bit of background before I begin. I did initially watch the series up until, this series did go on a very long hiatus where basically I think the first 6 episodes came out, but then because the creators had other obligations, like probably school stuff and from what I remember reading, they had school stuff and they wanted to work on other projects and stuff. So the series went on a 10-year long hiatus, and so it was I remember it was a pretty big day when they released when the hiatus ended. I was very surprised to see that the episode released that many years later. So anyway, yeah, then the series started airing back in so it stopped airing in 2013, I'm pretty sure, and then in 2023 it continued airing, and then I watched it while it was airing until I think around the last 5 episodes, where at the time I think that was probably around the time where I started the channel, and so I put all of my ongoing shows on hold. And then only recently, when I ended up rewatching BFDIA, I rewatched pretty much I rewatched most of BFDIA, and I watched the final, I think it was again 4 or 5 final episodes that I had never seen before. So yeah, this is a mostly rewatch, but the last few episodes are a first-time watch for me. So with that background out of the way, let us just begin, starting off with the plot. So the plot of this season, it's pretty much, it's the same kind of concept as the first Battle for Dream Island, where basically there are a lot of object contestants, and they are, as the title states, they're once again battling for Dream Island. However, in this case, because at the end of Battle for Dream Island, Leafy ended up stealing Dream Island, so now everyone is, the series starts with everyone chasing after Leafy, and then the battle actually begins and stuff. And yeah, I'm not going to get into specifics because this show is, this is the most random, chaotic show that I think I've ever seen. Show, I guess it's a web series, but still, anyway, I comparing it to something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's very bizarre and wacky and stuff, but at the same time, it still feels decently, just stuff will happen in the context of the show, but it still feels like it flows correctly. It doesn't feel like just random stuff happens out of nowhere. And the show is the complete opposite, where just random BS could just happen at any moment. So yeah, definitely very, very random and chaotic. And so each episode, basically, it is just a different battle happening. They end up, because Leafy has Dream Island at the start of the season, basically there's a challenge later on where they end up having to create Dream Island, and so they make this really crappy farm with these plastic animals and stuff, and so that is what they're battling for the entire season, which I would say it does kind of lower the stakes a bit, because there's all this battle and stuff, and at the very least in BFDI, it's there were pretty high stakes of the fact that they were battling over an actual Dream Island, but in this case they are just battling over, it ends up getting to a point where they're battling over a chunk of land with just a fake cow on it, so it does not help with the stakes of the actual series, because it feels okay, you lose, what are you losing out on? This one chunk of land, basically. So anyway, so this is a bit different from BFDI in the case that the announcer, it is not just the black speaker box. The announcer switches basically each episode, so that is pretty interesting, as well as not just that, but there is, every winner of the challenge gets a prize, and yeah, as usual, the one with the most votes gets eliminated, but the viewers also this season, they ended up voting on who their favorite character was, and the favorite character would get to spin a wheel and get a prize. That's another thing, this challenge, basically every challenge was decided through a wheel spin, and I'm trying to remember any other specific things that I should mention. There was something else, but it's eluding my mind at the moment. But I feel yeah, there was something else that was important. Oh yeah, the characters could switch between teams at the start before each challenge, and so it did lead to a lot of different teams and alliances being formed, so that was also pretty interesting, I would say. So yeah, overall, the plot, I'm going to probably give it I'm going to go a 4 out of 5. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 in the original BFDI. I'm going to give it also a 4 out of 5. I'll say this, in the original one, it was very basic. The challenges were not anything too complicated. It was solve this puzzle, cross this bridge, climb this ladder, I don't know, make a taco, make a cake or something like that. It was very basic challenges, whereas once again in this season, basically they crank up the random chaotic factor to the maximum, and it just gets, it's yeah, definitely, it doesn't feel like a game show anymore. It just feels like a very I don't know, the challenges could be something like collect 10 random items and put them in a box or something like that, or get your entire team into this bird cage, but the bird cage keeps on shrinking to the quantum state, basically. So let me think of some other ones. Maybe there was the one where they had to build a new Dream Island. That was another challenge. The challenges here, they are much more like very random. So I did appreciate it. Like on one hand, I did like the kind of simple nature of the original one, where it did feel more like an actual game show, kind of a more of like a pretty basic challenge. But in this case, it is a lot more random, and it's like it doesn't feel like there's like really a structure to the whole show in this season, but it does make it, it's like a different kind of flavor of this show that we've already seen before, so I do appreciate the random chaotic nature of this season. So yeah, once again, I'm going to give the plot a 4 to 5. I would say I liked it, and yeah. In terms of the characters, there is a lot of characters from the original Battle for Dream Island, but there are some that don't appear. I'm pretty sure characters, I think every character appears, but some of them are just not competing. I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know, Eraser, Pen, Flower, some of those characters. Woody, he's like not really at all in the series, but then towards the end, like in one of the final episodes, he becomes like really prominent. So yeah, a lot of characters that are not in this season, but there are also a lot of new characters: Ruby, Book, Yellowface, like just a lot of characters that were not in the original Battle for Dream Island that are also here, and I do like all of the characters. Leafy even makes a return, Fiery as well. They really don't focus on really the events of the last season until once you get towards the end of the season. Like when you get towards the end of BFDIA, they start like really focusing on the events of the last season, and kind of like this show does it's really impressive, the fact that they're able to recall like these really small details from previous episodes, like with all the randomness and chaotic nature of everything that is going on. So it's like very impressive. Like I think also One Piece does a good job of this, where they're able to take a detail from like 15 years ago and make it like just a small detail and like remind the viewers about it. I think One Piece is able to do that pretty well. But One Piece, it's still like there's a lot going on in One Piece, but again, it's like a pretty straightforward plot, and there's not like a lot of, I wouldn't say it's like too chaotic or random or anything like that. Whereas this show, with all just they're able to, like, in all this chaotic nature of just all this like random stuff happening constantly, they are able to recall these very minor details and remind the viewers about them. So I think that is very impressive. Not even just that, the fact that I'm pretty sure the sequel of this is meant to be, it's called, the original one is called BFDI, so the sequel is supposed to be called IDFB. Yeah, IDFB, which is, I think it's supposed to be the sequel of BFDIA, which I'm assuming it's going to start airing again soon. They released like one episode back years ago, like 9 years ago by now. And so 9 years ago, they already released the first episode of the sequel of this series, and then they managed to like tie everything together in BFDIA, where it like, so that they're at the point now where it makes sense, like when you get to IDFB, where it's like logically consistent with how BFDIA ended. So they do like a really good job of like balancing out all the chaos and randomness, which I find very impressive, I would say. So in terms of, I'm supposed to be talking about the characters, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. The characters, I would give probably I'm going to go a 7 out of 10. I'm going to say pretty good characters. There are a lot. Once again, there's not really a protagonist there's a few antagonists. Like, characters shift in their nature. Like, Pin is pretty antagonistic, but then she becomes like a better person, I would say. There are Coiny, like, temporarily he kind of also becomes antagonistic. Tennis Ball, like, throughout the course of the season, she ends up, I think, by the way, I'm still not good with the gender of these objects, so yep. Tennis Ball ends up becoming like pretty antagonistic. There's Fiery, who's like pretty good. Fiery's like barely in the season, but towards the end, he all of a sudden becomes an antagonist. So they like very much shift characters. Like, certain characters will be good and then they'll be bad and stuff. So I think that is pretty interesting and good. And yeah, overall, I'm going to say 7 out of 10 for the characters. Pretty good, I would say. In terms of the settings, this season has much better settings, I will say, compared to BFDI, where BFDI it all took place in that like very basic kind of. It was nice. It was like this grassland area with like a nice blue sky, very, very basic setting. But then this one, it is very much more different settings, where you have Yo-Yo Land, you have, I don't even know, like, they go to space in certain episodes, they go to just like different areas across the world. And so it is very much different with the settings. And the settings, I would say probably, I'm going to go an 8 out of 10. I would say that the settings work great, and it does look very nice. And it's not just the same basic one area, which I think it worked in BFDI, but it is cool to see a lot more variety in this season. So 8 out of 10 for the settings. In terms of the visuals, this is definitely an upgrade. This is, at this point, it is a lot more modern animation and stuff. So number one, the visual, like that animation itself, the characters are much more fluid in this season compared to the original BFDI. The actual art style itself looks pretty improved, I would say. It does look a lot more polished, and so the actual visuals itself are actually pretty impressive. Like, there are a lot of scenes of characters, and just especially towards the end, like when I think it was spoiler alert, I guess, for the final episode, but Needle and Book, when they're counting the final votes, it's like they're using the vote counter to reach Evil Leafy, and there's just like all this like random galactic chaos going on. It was just very, very cool to see. So the visuals, honestly, I'm going to be very generous. I'm going to give the visuals an 8.5. I would say that this series has some amazing visuals. And yeah, in terms of the worst thing I am going to say is maybe just the runtime. Like, this is very much a departure from what the original series was, where it was basically 8 to 10 minute episodes. And so when you get to the series, like, the episodes, they start getting a lot longer, where at some point towards the end, it's like there's an hour-long episode, there's like some 40-minute episodes and stuff, which is fine, but it does feel like maybe it feels sometimes a bit too long, like maybe the pacing of certain episodes, I could say. So, but I don't know if I want to say that is the worst thing. I don't know, yeah, I could say, I guess, the pacing in certain cases is not the best, but it is still good, I would say. But I'm just going to go like a 5 out of 10 for the pacing. I don't hate the pacing, but it's also, at times, it does feel like things take a bit too long to happen. So we're just going to go 5 out of 10 for the pacing. In terms of the best thing, I'm going to probably say just the fact that, like, once again, all this randomness, all this chaos, I'm using these two terms because it really describes like how the show feels, where it's like just so much random stuff happens, so much chaos is going on, but they still manage to balance it incredibly well, where it does feel still like they're not forgetting any details, they're not forgetting about any characters and stuff. It all feels like it feels very much like they're able to recall details in the midst of all this like chaos, and for how long the series has been going on. It feels like One Piece, but One Piece is like, it's still structured in a way where it's like, okay, it's pretty still simple, like the journey kind of that the characters are going on. It doesn't feel like things are making drastic changes here and there and stuff. But this, like, even in the final episode, it's like, I think in one of the final episodes we end up learning how the hand-powered recovery center ends up working, and so that's like a new detail, like, that just introduces more chaos and stuff. And so yeah, I'm going to give the best thing. I'm going to say the way that they're able to take all this randomness and chaos and still make it like very much like balance it really well and recall details from previous episodes and stuff. I'm going to give that probably honestly between like a 9 to a 9.5, I would say, because I'm like really impressed with the way that they're able to do it. So I'm going to give it probably a 9 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 just for the fact that sometimes it is confusing. It's like there were moments where it's like, wait, it's like they were calling a detail, but like myself, I'm trying to think like, wait, did that happen? Like, I don't remember this happening. So I guess because there is so much random nature and stuff, it does at times get a bit confusing to recall certain details in the past that happened. So I'm just going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it's like very impressive what the creators are able to do, but it is a bit hard for you as a viewer at times to like recall details from the past in the midst of all the chaos and stuff. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for the I don't even know how to describe it, the ability to balance out all the chaos and the random nature of the show with like actually structuring it in a way that like feels consistent, where it's like they're not forgetting any details from like the past and stuff, and it all feels logically consistent. Also, it doesn't even tie into like it recalls stuff from BFDI. It does, and not even just that. There was like an episode where I think it like recalls stuff from future like seasons, where I'm pretty sure, I didn't watch this yet. This is going to be probably like the next season is like BFB. There's also Teapot, I'm pretty sure, which is another like sequel season, and I'm pretty sure there's an episode where you have Nickel and Tennis Ball. They go to those series where it's like they're interacting with like characters from these alternate, I don't know if it's like an alternate timeline or an alternate dimension kind of thing, or maybe just I think it's an alternate timeline. I don't think it's an alternate timeline. I think they're either going to the future or the past. So it's like they're even connecting the current BFDIA season with like other seasons that are like either going to happen or have already happened and stuff. So it's all just like very impressive the way that they're able to balance it out. So yeah, once again, a 9 out of 10 for the way that they balance out and recall details and stuff, and handle it, like are able to, again, balance out like I don't know about balance, like just they're able to utilize the chaos and randomness to an extent that's like very impressive, I would say. Like, yeah, just rewind if you want to hear what I was trying to. I can't really. It's difficult for me to even make sense of like how to even describe this, but they still do such a good job at it. So anyway, just 9 out of 10 for all that. Anyway, so yeah, that is all of these scores. I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. All right, so it ends up coming out to about a 7.5, which would be very good. But honestly, I think I'd probably give it a bit lower than that. I think I would still probably give it about I think I gave the first BFDI, I think I gave that a 7 out of 10. I thought it was pretty good. I think I would probably honestly just give this about the same, also a 7 out of 10. I think one of the big things is, you know what I probably should have done? I said that the worst thing was I said that the worst thing, I forgot what I gave the worst thing. I think I said the worst thing was like the pacing. I probably should have said that the stakes were the worst thing. The stakes of like the okay, I should redo the calculations actually now. So I think I did King Crimson already. So Okay, the worst thing I'm going to change as being the... Okay, you know what? I'm just going to not do the King Crimson the first time. I'm going to redo the calculation. I'm going to change the worst thing. It is not the episode lengths. I'm going to say the worst thing is the stakes of this series, which I would say the whole Dream Island being the farm island chunk, I would give it probably a... where's the score sheet? I need to... Yeah, it's not great, so I'm going negative territory for this one. I would give it probably a... I'm going to go with 3.5 for the worst thing. Yeah, the island chunk, it just does not really work as like stakes for this season, I would say. So, all right, so it still ends up coming out to about a 7.5, but a bit of on the lower end of 7.5. So I would probably give this just a 7 out of 10. I would say it was pretty good. I would say it feels very different from the first original BFDI, and it's nice because it's as good as the first BFDI, but it's like a different kind of flavor of BFDI, where it's like doing something very different than what the original series did, which I appreciate. So yeah, I'm going to give it overall a 7 out of 10. Maybe if I let it marinate a bit longer, I would give it maybe it would reach that 7.5, but for now I'm just going to call it a 7. Pretty good, I would say, 7 out of 10. And so yeah, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's leave it at that.